Good morning, everyone. As our panel takes their seats, I'd like to extend my appreciation to colleagues here on the panel for taking the time out this morning. We had a conversation about this topic earlier in the week, and we agreed that we probably need several days to do it justice because there's so many aspects to the issue and the challenges that we face in the industry. So to talk it through in a fulsome way, we'll do our best to do it in 35 to 40 minutes. The themes that we look to delve into this morning are on the critical risks, particularly those that lead to fatalities. We heard earlier today 232 people lost their lives in the industry in the last year. Clearly, that's an unacceptable figure for all of us here in the room. In RightShip, we see those fatalities come through that span from enclosed spaces, fatalities, fall from height, man overboard cases, electrocution, sadly a range of suicides that also occur in the industry. So we'll delve into those, not so much on the incidents themselves, but around the progress being made in the industry, but also what more needs to be done. We'll also touch on the critical risks that occur during ship-to-shore interactions. When discharging or loading operations are occurring, we see a number of incidents that have come through, sadly, that are occurring there. So that's an aspect that we'll discuss on the panel today, as well as the demands being placed on crew and the increasing demands that we see in the industry that may in itself contribute to the risk that we're seeking to manage to reduce fatalities. So without further ado, I might move to the panel. I might start with yourself, George. From your experience at TMS Drive, what are your reflections on the progress that's been made in the industry and what more needs to be done?
First of all, thank you for the chance to speak up here with good friends and colleagues. And I would like to say that over the past decade, there have been serious improvements towards the safety improvement of all the vessels, of all the procedures done in place, utilizing tools like risk assessments and behavioral safety culture programs. But serious incidents and fatalities still persist. One of the key elements that affects that is, first of all, the struggle that we are facing, all of us is facing, to actually improve the safety on board the vessels by utilizing the tools available to us. The most common factor is human factor, of course. It has to do with how we're trying to pass to the seafarers the procedure that we have on board the vessels. What needs to be done from our side is to strengthen the accountability, first of all, and the onboard supervision of the procedures placed on board the vessels. We have to improve the perception of the risk operational issues in the mind of the seafarers, and we have to address the high-risk activities more systematically.
Thank you, George. I might move across to yourself, Panos, on this one. And also I should share that Panos, beyond Marin Dry, Panos is also the chair of the DBCE that we've discussed earlier today. So if you wanted to grab Panos on DBCE, please do so. Panos, similar to the question I put to George, what's your perspective from your experience that in terms of our progress and also the key areas that you believe we need to put more focus on?
Okay. First of all, thank you very much. We will try to stay to par with the previous two panels that were fantastic and excellent. It will be very difficult, but we will keep up try. The key question here is, have we failed or not? We have heard from Mr. Platsidakis, we have heard from Mr. Patrikios about data. This is something that also raised in the first panel and also discussed yesterday. We have lack of data. We don't really know how many fatalities we had in 2025. Steen presented a number. I have a number based on P&I Club's reports. That's completely different. My number is 120 fatalities 2025, actually 118, work-related. And there are another 400 fatalities, health-related and suicide-related. So we are starting and we are discussing safety and so on, and we don't have data. Mr. Platsidakis raised the issue about IMO. We have the GSIS database, everybody knows, can access it, can see it. It's a PhD project alone to get into every individual report, to download, to summarize, and try to do a comparative analysis and see what is the outcome. So, and going further, analyzing these incidents and fatalities, we cannot determine how many were related to fire, how many were related to this cause, and so on. So we need to strengthen our data. That's number one. Captain Leonid earlier talked about anonymous database. Huge thing. If the tanker has one, nobody participates. If the cargo has one, nobody participates. RightShip has one, nobody participates because there's fear of penalization. Okay. So my view, and being in my first ocean-going contract goes back in 1991, I see things have improved tremendously. Figures, and already stated in the previous panel, we need figures to actually see how we're doing, to identify the trends. We have done fantastic. We have reduced serious incidents, we have reduced fatalities, we have reduced how many vessels are lost every year. Over the last 5 years, we see a stalemate. Also, in the previous panel, we had a very good point about we have less serious incidents, but we have a lot of more medium and low seriousness incidents that have increased, and nobody is reporting, and the only one knows about them is the organization itself. And I will stop with that, and I will say that we have not failed, we are improving, but are we happy with this 120 or 250 or whatever number is correct? No, we're not happy. Because if this person within the 120 is our brother, or our sister, or our father, then we would see this number a bit differently. And I will close with that. We are adding procedural layers to an already overloaded system without looking at seriously improving design. The same bulk carrier that I joined back in '91, pretty much if you exclude the bridge, the EGDIS and so on, and engine control room, Kongsberg and all the automation, pretty much the same. We need to improve design, we need to address commercial pressure, and we need to have good enforcement, true enforcement of issues such as work rest hours, operational pressure, and have finally some empowerment to the people that are actually doing the business. Thank you.
Thank you, Panos. And you mentioned a couple of key points there around the system and engineering controls, people-based controls, procedural controls. I might move to Apostolos now around the, from your experience, Apostolos, what's your perspective given the range of controls that we need in the industry, but also on the people side? I was talking with George just now around the behavioural aspects and, you know, well-educated, well-trained people, mistakes occur, engineering controls fail. What's your perspective on the attention on the training and the people side?
Yeah, so thank you very much for the question and for the invitation on the panel. So I would agree with Panos that as an industry, I think we've done a very good job of actually building up the controls over the last few decades. Despite that, the figures, whether they are 232 or 100 or whatever, they're still too many. Yeah, so there is a gap. Something is not, being done well or whatever. So that needs the analysis. And I think where a lot of the gaps lie is actually how those controls, whether they are, let's say, procedural, whether they are training, whether they are audits, anything in that continuous improvement cycle, how they actually operate in practice. So, and how do people interact with them? I think that is where the opportunity lies, because if we do all the analysis, if we do all the things that we should be doing in the, let's say, the framework, if there's an accident, an incident, we will investigate, we will find, let's say, the root causes and lessons learned. Are they the right ones? Are they the ones which actually have contributed to that accident? And usually, if we are doing it, and if we are finding the right root causes, they will be human factors related. And they will be having a behavioral aspect to those. So I believe that we need to make that shift more onto the human factors to find the opportunities about how should we evolve, let's say, day-to-day learning. It's not just doing a training today in 1 month or the next month, and that's it. It has to be a continuous, again, a cliche, it's a journey, right? It's a process, but it's continuous. And it has to be actually translating into learning and competence. Some change, some increase in skill, or something that will, give you the assurance that things are under control, or under those sets of controls. That's where the gap is. I don't think we need more controls. I think we have more than enough. But it's how these are being applied in practice and how effective they are, which is, I think, the area for improvement.
It's a good point in terms of it's a bit more than attending a training course to tick the box. It's around entrenching that awareness and that familiarisation, making it part of the DNA. That might be a good point to move across to Ali. You've looked at a range of incidents and you've seen a range of cases involving enclosed spaces. You might like to share some more reflections on that, and then we'll move across to Torkel and we'll talk more about the mooring ropes and the digital work that Phil Helmson are doing in terms of improving some of the engineering controls that relate to mooring ropes. So, Ali.
Thank you. To conduct a safe, high-risk task, we need a procedure that is relevant, specific, and in detail. And this procedure has to be conducted by a trained, competent person used under the measures, standard control measure, and using the proper PPE. So we are addressing 4 elements here: procedure, trained personnel, permits, and PPE, specifically with regard to enclosed space. So we are talking about the personal gas meter and portable gas meter. So we see deficiencies in procedures. The procedures are not specific, are not practicable. We see procedures that suggesting that, for example, the Boston store, Foxel store, is an enclosed space entry, which we all know. And they are expecting to follow the enclosed space entry approach when they enter or exit this compartment. We see the personnel involved in this activity, they have not been trained, or there is a certificate, but the training is just the paper. They tick the boxes. So when we look at in detail the duration of the training, 20 minutes, 15 minutes is the duration of the training course for the enclosed space entry. We go to the permits. We see the permits either is not specific, aligned with the industry recommendation, or it is not completed properly. And then the argument is that this is administration error. But if there is a different layer of the check, so from the person enter, write it down, safety officer sign it, then the person responsible for this task is signed and finally validated by the master. So then it's not anymore administration error, it's a system error. We see that, again, that the shortage in these personal gas meter or portable gas meter, we see that they are not familiar with these equipments. It has not been calibrated, has not been certified. So these are the common issues we see. From 1st January 2026 till 1st May 2026, we did about 2,000 inspections. Section 4 was the highest, is the SMS section in the risk, is the highest section that create the findings. 27% of the findings were related to these activities. Question 4.5 and question 4.16. So it's suggesting that we need to seriously consider the training, and the practicality of what we write as a procedure and what we, present to the ships, to the crew, to exercise it during this activity.
Thank you, Ali. We might come back to enclosed spaces in a moment with respect to stevedores coming on board and entering cargo holds. Torquil, with respect to mooring, what have you seen in terms of advances and what more needs to be done around safety when it comes to mooring operations?
Hello. Thank you so much, Darren, and thank you for the question. It's very nice being here. We in Wilhelmsen, as an engineering company developing ropes, are trying to combat the risk of rope operations. We have seen the statistics of lots of dangers happening because of rope snapping, and we all know that the mooring deck and rope operations are dangerous today. Because of this, we have developed several, or are trying to combat this solution on several different ways. One is the snapback arrestor inside our mooring ropes. This is a technical solution that removes the dangerous snaps that might happen if a rope breaks, and then greatly reducing the risk of harm of the people being nearby. Also looking into digital solutions, both with a line management plan where the vessel can have overview over the ropes, their use, and also guide the crew to what they should inspect, also using then AI tools inside this. But as we know and has heard, it's more and more annoying for the crew on board with one more portal where they need to do reporting. Because of this, we are looking more now into sensor solutions and also then looking into the interconnection of data, sharing data with different partners like RightShip to make data flow and everybody understands the risk and getting the status of the equipment on board.
Thank you, Torquil, and probably a good point to move into the discussion around further discussion around the ship-to-shore interactions. We've heard from many in the room here around some of the challenges around the variability across ports and the difficulty in terms of loading and unloading operations depending on which port you're at. What are your views, Panos and George, around that increased risk, particularly with stevedores coming on board, and how and what we need to see in terms of better ways to manage that risk, both from the ship side as well as the port side as well.
Yeah, talking about the interaction with ports, we have to be clear that the accountability must be shared, but it must also be clearly defined. From the vessel side, there are measures to be taken, such as ensuring the safe access and the safe environment for the stevedores, to establish the clear safety protocols existing on board the vessel, and monitor the ongoing operations and make sure that everything is done in a safe manner. How, from the terminal side, they ensure that qualified, well-trained stevedores are boarding the vessels, that they follow the agreed procedures, and that they respect the safety margins. However, here there is a very strange grey area. Sometimes the risk is not actually attributed to those that should. And although everybody here knows that the master has the override authority and the overall authority of the vessel, sometimes the masters are afraid to act on unsafe acts from third-party stevedores attending the vessel. This is something that we, the shipping companies, the managers, were trying to pass on to the vessel masters, but that is not enough. We need something also from the industry. Whenever there is a reaction from a master, this must be respected and not fought back. They will have to reassure the master that if he acts on an unsafe act, he will not be punished on that.
Yeah, that's a very important point, because there's multiple parties involved. And,
yes, because we keep talking about transparency and safety and procedures, but if a master stops the loading of a vessel because of an unsafe act, then everybody here knows what's going to happen next.
I might move to Panos, but I'll come back to that point, George, around in those cases where the master could raise those unsafe acts, how they could be brought to the attention of the industry, because there's a data opportunity there as well. So we'll come back to that point. Panos, before I move back to the point on feedback.
I will be very short, and I have written down some key points that for all of us to reflect later, because we don't have the time to discuss in details all these things. This new MSC 581 that came into force to regulate a bit more the enclosed space entry and to regulate the ship-shore interface and the stevedores, how they are behaving and so on, and the recent changes in the risk questionnaire. This derived from an intermanager report, statistical analysis, saying that we had so many fatalities since '96 and so on. Correct? Yeah, I think this was the driving force. And then we had also the Berge vessel incident where there were a lot of stevedores trying to rescue each other and finally all lost. And what did we do? We changed the rule book. We had a rule book that was not working, and now we made a new rule book, and we did not touch the system. Same people on board, same vessel, same stevedores, same pressure, and now we expect the people to behave differently. Why? So it's not a behavioral problem. The issue of controlling ship-shore interface and entry into a closed space and so on is not a behavioral issue. It is also a behavioral issue, could be. It is a contributing factor, but it's not only that to regulate. So we were saying to the master and the crew and so on, you used to do that, now you do a different checklist and everything will be resolved. I'm pretty sad to say that it's not like that. I will go back to my friends with an engineering background and say we do not have requirements for sensors, we do not have requirements for interlocks, we do not have requirements for alarms, we do not have requirements for improved design for rescue. For those of you who are seafarers and have tried to do a rescue from enclosed space entry drill, Tell me if it is feasible actually to do this in reality under duress and under stress and other difficult situations. So we ignore all this and we say, okay, here's a new rule of procedure, here is a new gas atmosphere meter that now measures CO2. Ooh. How many of the fatalities reported in inter-manager report were caused by CO2? I'm in favor, I'm not saying I'm against, I'm in favor, measure that as well. But do we base our decision on a structured and statistical analysis and so on? Why all these things happen? Because, already described by George, masters and crew do not have stop work authority in reality. If my officer on watch sees the stevedores behaving as they should and stops the operation, because this is risky, tell me what will happen afterwards. Why this is happening? Because we have already mentioned again asymmetrical accountability. We ask the vessel to regulate the language level, the training level, the compliance level of the labor from the shore. We cannot do. Why this is happening? The high risks that we are facing every day. Because manning is what it is. And even an organization like Maran that has juniors, cadets, and so on, we still have 25 people. And every new built vessel has cabin for 25. Order a new building vessel and tell me how many cabins she will have. At night time, there is one officer of watch and one AB. And we expect these two guys to control 30 stevedores, to control the ropes, to control the operation, to control the drafts, to control the ballasting and ballasting. Finally, why it is happening? Because people are working in excess of their work and rest hours. World Maritime University study of last year reported 12% only compliance as stated by the actual seafarers. PSC MOUs during their CICs and flags and classification societies who do the audits report 96% compliance. What an oxymoron. 96 record compliance and by third parties who are doing the enforcement and 12% compliance by the people who are enforced. So there is a lot of room for improvement to actually look the mirror and say, we have managed to empower our people, we have managed to tell them that they have stop work authority and they have nothing to fear. This word I will say again and again, let's abolish fear from our shipping industry. So it's not a food chain. The stronger it's the weaker. Thank you.
Yeah, it's an excellent points there, Panos. And also the quality of that data and, the potential for misinterpretation. I mean, there's question marks over the data that you shared, of course. And the point around no fear is important too, because clearly there's a lot more that needs to be done, particularly around ports around the world. And masters shouldn't be fearful of raising where there are issues, because otherwise, if it stays hidden, we can't address it. We're drawing towards the end of our time here in the panel, but given the number of questions that have come from people in the room and the discussions we've had, interested in your reflections of what you'd like to see, the top 3 things that you'd like to see improve around how we manage critical risk, and specifically around reducing fatalities. And one point I'd share as you reflect on answering that, what part does the fact that we continue to add demands to crew, there's new requests that are coming all the time that we've discussed today, what part does that play in terms of increasing risk, and therefore what would we need to do better to mitigate that risk? I might start with you, George, and then we'll work our way across the panel.
So let's make it fast. 3 things that we should focus. I think, first of all, we need to shift from compliance to behavior. And this means that we have to focus on how the work is actually done and the reality of operations and not just procedures. The second thing is to simplify and align the requirements. We see a lot of different requirements, a lot of workload added to the seafarers because of those multiple regimes of inspections, the third-party inspections, the new regulations, regulations differentiating from port to port. We must work on that. The third one, of course, is, and in order to achieve all of the above, is we have to strengthen the collaboration between the ship and the shore industry.
Thank you, George. Ali.
My view is that we have to concentrate on safety culture. Safety culture at the office level and improve that culture and then transfer this safety culture to the ship's level. That is what we see as a gap. And to do this, we need to have a proactive risk management system. We need to have an open discussion, talk freely, and a management system or the ship's operator that not just enforce the policy and procedure, but to show the behavior as an example of the safety and what they are doing. Really, the safety really means to them. So that should be the approach, to my opinion.
Thank you, Ali. Panos.
I will say only one. I will stick to empowerment. Empowerment and involvement of the people. And as a suggestion to this fantastic event, perhaps next year or the year after, when you're going to do the next one, host a panel with seafarers.
Great suggestion.
Thank you.
Thank you, Panos. Apostolos.
Yeah, I will also focus on one because I can see the countdown here in front of me. I think I alluded to it before, but we need to move from the compliance mindset to effectiveness, right? So, okay, this is maybe a very utopian statement, but we have elements of each of those, but we do not have the interlink. So we need to understand, we need to be able to support our people on board when they have the higher risk environment, where they have all the pressures, which we've been and analyzed throughout this panel and the previous ones, and be able to give them the opportunity to perform under those pressure conditions. So how we do that, obviously we need to support that through training, through, let's say, on-the-job mentoring, all those good things, but we must be there to enable. And I think that's also where RightShip has a significant role to play, because you have all this data, you have all the outreach, the network, you have the influence, and therefore that should be used constructively to, let's say, enable the whole supply chain to move in that right direction, rather than being, let's say, just ticking boxes, which is still there in the industry, unfortunately. And again, in the openness and the transparency, we need to also explore that. Why is it just tick the box? What is behind the box? What is the essence? And what are we actually there to improve? And that includes all the stakeholders, because it was good to see the ports before, the charterers, and I think at the end of the day, yes, each one is there for their own business and for their own profitability, but they depend on each other. And ultimately, they depend on the people in the front line. So let's support them and let's enable them.
Thank you, Apostolos. And Torkil.
As the last person, I will also leave you with one thing. Coming from a digital space, I think we should work on reducing the reporting. The captain and chief engineers today they're just stuck inside the office, sitting in front of a computer. If we manage to make data flow between companies, interconnect them, and then reduce the time they need to be able to sit in front of a computer doing reporting, and leaving time for them to actually operate the vessel, I think that would greatly reduce risk.
Thank you, Torquil, and I'd like to thank the panel for the discussion today. Obviously, a lot more to discuss over the coming weeks and months as we continue to collectively work through and improve the safety performance of the industry. And I like your suggestion there, Panos, around next time we do this, having some seafarers and maybe someone from the stevedore side involved in a panel discussion on this topic, because it's quite a significant one. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to the panelists for a great discussion. Yeah, please take your time for a picture. Thank you for what I think was really a candid discussion at what the risks are and what it really takes to address them. What I take from it is progress on safety doesn't just happen on a vacuum. It really depends also on the people at the center of it all. And that brings us quite nicely to our next session, the human element, crew welfare in a data-driven world. Thank you also for the questions. Keep them coming. There's a separate QR code for each panel. Now, crew welfare is a growing priority, but alignment is not always clear. This coming session will be exploring how crew welfare is defined, delivered, and experienced across the industry.